You ever get told you can't do something on your own land by someone who's not even your neighbor? That's a special kind of madness. I'll never forget the day Karen Whitmore showed up on my porch. She was the president of the most ridiculous HOA you've ever heard of, and she gave me a formal notice to stop riding my snowmobiles on my own land. 48 hours, she said, or they'd take legal action. That's when I knew Karen had finally lost her mind. My name is Jack Sullivan. I own about 200 acres of old Montana mountain land just outside of Bozeman. It's nothing fancy, just old pines and a small frozen lake. It has a cabin that creaks when the wind blows. It's the kind of place where you can finally breathe. My great-grandfather bought this stretch back in 1947. He paid next to nothing for it back then. This corner of the world was still more moose than millionaires. It's been ours ever since. You might not think much of a trail winding through snowy woods, but for me, it's my family's heartbeat. Every winter, as far back as I remember, my dad and I would fire up the snowmobiles. We'd check the fences and feel the powder kick up behind us. Some winters, the world would go completely quiet. You could hear your own heartbeat echoing off the birches right up until the engines roared to life. Those rides were our tradition. Honestly, it was our therapy. But there's a catch to that trail. That trail is also the only decent way to get a vehicle up to Big Timber Ski Resort, tucked on the other side of the mountain. The resort doesn't own the access road. I do. Technically, it's an easement. My grandfather signed an agreement with the original owners in 1965. It gave them and their guests the right to cross my land to reach the lodge. In exchange, we got ski passes and a small yearly check. That check barely keeps up with inflation. I think I get about $3,000 a year now. It's not enough to retire on, but I never cared about the money. About 5 years back, things started changing. A big out-of-state developer bought the resort. They decided to slap up these shiny luxury condos at the base. They called it Big Timber Village, selling the dream of private slopes and mountain serenity. With the condos came the HOA, and with the HOA came Karen Whitmore. I'd only met Karen twice before she marched up to my porch that January. She was always in meetings complaining about snow removal. She acted like she was the sheriff and the mayor rolled into one. She looked the part, too. Her hair was pulled so tight you wondered how she blinked, wearing a parka worth more than my pickup truck. That day, she brought 2 other board members, Barbara and Nancy. They stood behind her like backup singers, acting like they'd practiced for a hostile takeover. She barely looked at me before speaking. "Mr. Sullivan, we need to discuss your recreational vehicle usage," she said. I still had an axe in my hand, splitting firewood. I would have much rather kept doing that. I asked her what she meant. "Your snowmobiles. The noise is absolutely unacceptable. Our residents expect peace, and your machines are disrupting that. Mind you, the nearest condo is half a mile away across thick woods and a lake." I told her that, but she insisted the sound carried. She claimed it was disturbing wildlife and dangerous for skiers. I tried to be patient for about 3 seconds, reminding her of my family's history. I told her my family had been riding here for 70 years, while she had only been here 5 minutes. Barbara piped up about HOA rules regarding noise pollution. I immediately stopped her right there. "Your HOA," I said, "has no jurisdiction over my property. I'm not part of your little community. This land was here long before those condos ever were." Karen just stared, lips pinched like she ate a lemon. "We're simply asking you to cease using snowmobiles on the trail adjacent to our property in the interest of being a good neighbor." The trail wasn't adjacent to their property. It went right through mine. The real issue was the easement road. For a quarter mile, the main road and my trail run parallel. It's close enough that the condo folks see me enjoying myself when they drive their Range Rovers to the slopes. Nothing irritates entitled people like seeing someone else happy on their own land. I asked if this was really about noise or just them having to see me. Karen said I was creating a nuisance and the HOA had voted. We are formally requesting that you cease snowmobile operation, specifically on the trail visible from the road. If you don't, we'll take legal action. She actually handed me a folded letter with a deadline. I told her in no uncertain terms to get off my property. I may have picked up the axe again, not in a threatening way, just making a point. She had the nerve to say I was the one being unreasonable. I nearly laughed. They come to my home, tell me I can't use my own land, threaten lawsuits, and I'm the unreasonable one. They left, promising I'd hear from their attorney. I immediately called Thomas Miller. Thomas has been my lawyer since I was a kid. He's the kind of guy who can calm you down just by breathing. He listened to the whole story, then assured me they couldn't tell me what to do on my own land. The easement let them cross, nothing more. But he warned me they could still make trouble, and frivolous lawsuits are expensive to defend. He told me to document everything and check the original easement. I dug through my dad's old filing cabinet and found the 1965 agreement. It was yellowed and typed on a real typewriter. Buried in the legalese, it said the resort guests had access for peaceful transit. But here's the part that stopped me cold. Either side could terminate with 180 days' notice if the other party violated the terms. That included filing legal action that interferes with peaceful enjoyment. I called Thomas back and read him the clause. He went quiet. Jack, if you invoke this, you cut off their only road to the resort. This will be war. I told him they started it and I was just defending myself. He told me to wait and see if they actually filed suit. I didn't have to wait long. The next week, I got served with a nuisance lawsuit full of buzzwords about noise, wildlife safety, and property values. They wanted me banned from using snowmobiles within half a mile of the easement, plus damages. They even had exaggerated witness statements. Thomas said it would cost 15 grand or more to defend at trial. I could barely afford it, so I decided to invoke the termination clause. It took him 3 days to draft the notice. I delivered it to the resort, the HOA, and Karen personally. I also sent copies in the mail. That afternoon, my phone blew up. Karen left me 12 voicemails, each one angrier than the last. Eric Jenkins, the resort manager, showed up on my porch, desperate to negotiate. I told him to talk to the HOA. This was their doing. He offered more money and pleaded about jobs and guests. I stood firm. You've got 177 days to find another road. After that, it was like living in a ridiculous daytime soap opera. The HOA kept suing. The resort tried to mediate. The mayor, real estate folks, and even the press got involved. Some called me a hero for property rights, while others called me a selfish bastard. Here's the part nobody saw coming. Building another road in Montana would cost millions and take years due to environmental laws. There wasn't really another way up the mountain. They were completely trapped. They tried an emergency court motion to block my termination, arguing it would destroy businesses and jobs. Thomas and I pushed back hard. The contract was incredibly clear. The judge read the fine print. She gave the resort a year instead of 6 months before I could lock the gate. In the meantime, everybody started suing everybody else. The resort sued the HOA for interfering with business. The HOA sued back. Eventually, Eric called me with a real offer. If the HOA dropped their suit, would I drop the termination? They'd fix the road, pay me triple, and write it into their bylaws that they couldn't sue me again. You better believe I made them put it in writing. At the final settlement, Karen Whitmore sat at the far end of the table, looking miserable. The resort paid up, and the HOA dropped their lawsuit for good. When it was all done, Karen told me I'd shown everyone how selfish and vindictive I was. I just looked at her. Karen, you sued me for riding a snowmobile on my own land. You started this. Look in the mirror. Afterward, life got quiet again. The resort kept their access. The HOA got new leadership. Michael Chang, a reasonable guy, actually came by and apologized. We talked like real neighbors. The lawsuits faded. I rode my snowmobile whenever I wanted. The new road held up beautifully. I wish I could say I never saw Karen again, but I did once at the grocery store. She couldn't even meet my eyes. She had lost completely. Word was, she sold her condo and moved back to New York. Honestly, I hope she finds peace because she sure didn't have it here. A funny thing happened, though. My case got talked about in property rights groups. People started calling me for advice. Even an HOA lawyer asked me to talk sense into another board in Idaho about to make the same mistake. I asked them, "Are you actually being harmed, or is this about control?" I promised them that starting a war over something petty would only bring regret. Maybe they listened. Over time, everything found its balance. The resort thrived, and the HOA focused on snow removal instead. I got back to what mattered: my land, my family's trail, and my own peace and quiet. The lesson hit harder than I expected. Your rights are worth defending, even when it's hard. But it shouldn't come to that. If Karen had just knocked on my door and talked to me like a person, we could have found a compromise. Instead, she came swinging, and I had no choice but to swing back. A year later, I sat on my porch. I watched the sun drop behind the mountains with a cold beer in hand. The road below was busy with skiers heading home. I raised my bottle to the ridge, honoring my great-grandfather's land and my father's legacy. I had kept the land safe. The trail was still ours. Nobody was telling me what I could or couldn't do on my own property. So now let me ask you, where's the line between standing up for yourself and being stubborn? Have you ever had someone try to push you off your own land or tell you how to live on it? I'd love to hear how you handled it. Go ahead, tell your story. I'll be right here on my porch, enjoying the mountain.